The end of the tax year is coming. Happy New Year to all those who celebrate. There are a handful of very important things you need to do or your finances could be toast. There's not even any bread in there, to be honest with you. Bloody hell, that's a bit aggressive. Sorry, I promise it only can get better from here. For those who don't know or don't celebrate, which is strange to me because I have a massive party every single year without fail, the end of the UK tax year is on the 5th of April. Strangely, the tax year runs from the 6th of April to the following 5th of April. Let's go through the key things that you need to do before the end of the tax year. You can use the timestamps below to jump to different points of the video, and there'll be some useful links in the description as well. Number one, your state pension. Now, if you're younger, this won't really apply to you now, but it's important to know because you might be able to pass information on to family, weird uncles, friends, to make the most of this. To get the full state pension, which is currently £221 a week, you need 35 years of national insurance contributions. So most people will get that over their working life. If you start working at 25, by the time you get to 60, you'll have the full state pension. However, not everyone has the 35 years of working history because they might have been out of the country, they might have had time out of the workforce, or whatever other reason. We can currently go back to 2006 and plug in any missing gaps. But from the next tax year, we can only go back 6 years, not all the way back to 2006. This is probably one of the biggest returns on investment you can get if you're not currently entitled to the full state pension. I'll be honest, this one is probably more applicable to people 40 and over, but it's very important. So even if you're below that, speak to your family members, your parents, your grandparents, make sure they have the full state pension. And if they do have gaps, they can plug them and make a good return on investment on that. So what can you do? Number one, check your national insurance record. I checked mine, here it is, and you can see I'm impeccable. Worth saying, I've only been in the workforce for a few years. Number two, check your state pension forecast. If you see 221 quid, then you're bang on the money and you're gonna get the full state pension. Number three, there is an expert on this topic and it's Martin Lewis. I'll link his full video down below and it's worth giving it a watch if you're in this bucket or know someone that is, because it could honestly make you and save you a small fortune. Plug those gaps, get the full state pension, and then you'll be entitled to that potentially for decades, depending on how long you live. Number two, we're sticking on pensions, but now we're moving away from the state pension to workplace pensions and SIPPs. We can currently contribute a maximum of £60,000 or up to 100% of our earnings each tax year. So obviously, make as much of this allowance as you can each tax year. And that £60,000 is your own contributions, your employer's contributions, and the tax relief. So it's the gross contributions that go into your pension or pensions. If you have a SIPP and a workplace pension, it's the sum across all of them. And if you also have a defined benefit pension, it's the increase in that as well. So you might have to do a bit of quick maths and work out how much you've actually put in this tax year and how much of the allowance you've got left. But with pensions, we can go back 3 years and use any unused allowances. So you could technically put in a lot more than the £60,000 in some scenarios. Point three though is still on pensions, and it's about using pensions to improve your tax efficient situation. What I mean by that is you can make pension contributions to bring you into a lower tax bracket. Let's say you earn just over £50,000 and you're now a high rate taxpayer, you can make pension contributions to bring you back down to be a basic rate taxpayer. For example, if you're going to start to lose your personal allowance because you're on a bumper salary and you're in the 1%, you can make pension contributions and bring you down to a lower tax band. That is tax efficiency, baby. Or let's say you're a high rate taxpayer, then it makes more financial sense to actually put money into a pension because you're getting 40% tax relief. You get a 20% basic tax relief and an extra 20% tax relief on top to get 40% tax relief in total for some more tax efficiency. Baby. Only one more time I'm gonna say that, I promise. From a child benefit point of view, from £60,000 to £80,000, you begin to lose your child benefit. So if you're just over £60,000 in salary, you might be able to make some more pension contributions to bring you below £60,000 for your income that's used to actually measure whether you're entitled to child benefit or not. And that'll then sort of put more money back into your pocket because you'll retain the full child benefit allowance for some more tax efficiency, baby. I feel like I need Arnold to just quickly pop out behind me and say that. Unfortunately, the production quality on this small channel has not got to that point yet, but maybe one day. So it's worth considering whether you can essentially make additional pension contributions to lower your income tax band or to retain your child benefit or retain your personal allowance. And if you need to do that as soon as possible before the end of the tax year. It's also worth saying that pensions, ISAs, taxes, all of this is subject to change as the years go by and different governments come in. So the current rules are there, make the most of them. Number 4, let's move on to ISAs. Individual savings accounts, another one of the best ways to save and invest tax efficiently in the UK. The first thing that's worth saying is this £20,000 can be spread across the various ISAs with a maximum of £4,000 that can go into a lifetime ISA. The ISA allowance though cannot be carried back. It's use or lose. So try and maximise what you can of it before the end of the tax year. However, the £20,000 is a post-tax allowance. So you'd have to earn £30,000 just to put £20,000 into an ISA, roughly. And this, of course, doesn't take into account any life expenses. So what I'm trying to say is this allowance is absolutely massive. Like that big, maybe that big, then that's massive, trust me. I've been told. Just checking Arnold, isn't there?
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
I've often heard people over the years sound a bit disheartened when they say, oh, I can only put £1,000 in, I'm not gonna do it, what's the point? There's still definitely a point. I personally have never maxed out the allowance. I've never really come that close in my 7 or 8 years of investing. Most people in the country will never max out this allowance in any tax year. So don't try and sort of see that £20,000 as you have to max it out. Just think of it as the more the merrier. Like you go into the pub on a Friday night, the more the merrier. If there's 5 of you, you'll have a great time. But if another 5 of the boys come, it's gonna be an absolutely massive night. Similar with your ISA allowance. If you can only put in £2,000, that is definitely better than nothing. Maybe one day you can max out the whole thing, but if you can't, don't be disheartened. Use what you can, and particularly with an ISA is a little bit more important just because the allowance doesn't carry forward, unlike the pension allowance. Point 5, and sticking on ISAs, let's talk about BED and ISA. This is a way you can essentially avoid or reduce your capital gains tax bill. Now, the main benefit of an ISA is it is completely tax-free, both the growth and the dividends. However, a lot of people, and I've done this myself when I first started investing back in 2017, 2018, I opened up a general investment account. General investment accounts have no tax advantages, so you may be liable to pay capital gains tax or dividend tax. Particularly if you're investing for years and years, these allowances are actually relatively small. So if you are currently using a general investment account, it might make sense to sell some of your gains up to the capital gains tax allowance of £3,000 and then get that money into a stocks and shares ISA instead, because of course then the growth is completely tax-free. So a BED and ISA is a good way to utilize that capital gains tax allowance and essentially avoid future capital gains tax you might have to pay if you kept it in a general investment account, as opposed to getting that money into an ISA or even a pension. But of course with a pension, you might have to pay tax one day, whereas with an ISA, it's completely tax-free growth. Once again though, it is worth saying, and this is probably another point, point 6, ISA rules are subject to change just like pensions, and there's been quite a bit of speculation in the press recently. A lot of it is just BS, and it might be the current incumbent party putting out some speculation. It might be opposition parties putting out speculation. It might just be some good old fake news, which we all love in this day and age. But there's been rumours about capping the cash ISA allowance to £4,000 per tax year. There's been some other rumours about capping the total ISA contribution limit to £100,000. Of course, just like football, nothing is official till you see the man standing there with the shirt, and the official announcement on Twitter is the exact same with ISAs, pensions and taxes, although a bit less exciting, which is granted. Nothing is official until it's in a budget or in some sort of official announcement from the government. But once again, all these ISA tax pension rules are subject to change, and particularly with ISAs, there's been a lot of murmurings that they are going to change. So with these current rules that are quite good at the moment, in my opinion, try to make the most of ISAs whilst you can. Which brings me on to my 7th and final point, the kids. I've so far been selfish and only talked about adult ISAs and adult pensions, but we also have junior ISAs and junior pensions. Junior ISAs and junior pensions, or junior SIPPs, work the exact same way as the adult versions of the accounts. The two main differences are the allowances are lower, so the junior ISA allowance is £9,000 per tax year, and the junior SIPP allowance is £3,600 gross per tax year. And once again, by gross, I mean your contribution and the tax relief that you'd get. So if you put in £2,880, you'll max out the £3,600 junior SIPP allowance. Another important point, which I actually recently did a podcast episode on, I say recently, it was literally like 6 months ago, but you sort of lose track of time. With a junior ISA and a junior SIPP, the money is legally and technically your child's when they get to 18 with the junior ISA and when they get to 55 currently with a junior SIPP, although the pension age will of course increase over time. Which is first of all why some parents like to actually use their own allowances to invest for their children, because they have more sort of legal control over it. But that's just an important point to make on those junior accounts. What I was getting at though is a lot of these junior accounts, once again, have allowances, and with that junior ISA allowance, it's use or lose. So try once again and make the most of it. Of course though, same point as before, if you can only use 200 quid of the junior ISA allowance, that's absolutely fantastic. Number one, because the allowance is use or lose, so anything you don't use will be lost. But number two, and more importantly, kids have so much time on their hands. They have decades of compounding ahead of them. So even really small contributions, if you invest that into an aggressive stock market fund, a global fund, a US fund, that has potentially decades and decades. I mean, with a junior SIPP, that's got potentially 5 to 6 decades of compounding ahead for them. So that really is a massive benefit of just putting away a little bit of money where you can for your children. Although of course, I haven't got any children that I'm aware of. That's a terrible joke. I really hope there's no karma and I find out. Anyway, just use what you can of those junior allowances and we'll leave it at that. That wraps up this video all about the end of the tax year. And if you're watching this in the new tax year, then I'm sorry. Just put a reminder in your phone to rewatch this in March next year, and then you can hopefully make the most of all these allowances. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more investing and personal finance videos, and watch this video here if you want to keep learning about investing. See you in the next one.